I'm sure there must have been a time when Grant Hackett was inspired by Kieran Perkins. In many respects, it might have even been a bittersweet moment for him. Of course, everything pointed to the younger man, but I bet Grant was haunted by the memory of Lane 8, Atlanta, 1996. In the end, the race went as most people expected. There was a new sheriff in town, Grant Hackett, yet Kieran Perkins remained iconic. It was perfect as Australia picked up gold and silver.
I think for me, the time that I probably knew that I was capable of going to an Olympic Games or perhaps even winning an Olympic gold medal was when I was actually 13. I'm not sure I understood the size, the scale, or how difficult it might actually be, but I honestly had that self-belief then. When Sydney got the Olympics in 1993, I thought, right, I want to go to an Olympic Games and I want to win. And I was honestly that motivated and that driven to do the training, do the preparation. I honestly thought I could. And I was so inspired by Kieran Perkins, who was the world record holder, who was the Olympic gold medalist at the time, that I thought, well, another Australian can do it, surely I can as well. I guess the lead up to winning my first individual gold medal at an Olympics wasn't all positive, wasn't all fairy tales by any means. It was actually very difficult. I didn't perform that well earlier in the week in some of my events. I then really had to get myself, I guess, up for that particular race because Kieran was swimming so quick at the time. But I still had that sense of belief that I could actually do it, that I could actually achieve my goal. I could achieve that childhood dream of, going into that final, going up against my sporting hero in Kieran Perkins and taking that gold medal in front of a home crowd. And the feeling afterwards, I remember just delaying it for a second. I actually looked up at the scoreboard to see my time and just stared at it. Then I just let those emotions go. And it was basically, I was 20 years of age and it was probably the last 7 years of dreaming of that moment. And finally seeing it come to fruition was pretty overwhelming and it felt pretty cool.
Yeah, so Sydney was extraordinary, I guess, because Grant Hackett at that point had become my main rival, and he was certainly the young up-and-coming guy. It was his first Olympics gunning for the 1500 medal, and of course he also had raced against Thorpe in the 400. So he was sort of seen as this guy on the cusp of greatness, but he had a couple of decent rivals to overcome along the way. I guess for me it was a fascinating moment because it was the first time that the personality of competition or that competitor became a thing. Like I was always one of these athletes who, to be honest, wasn't really worried about who was in the lane beside me. It was just another 7 warm bodies I had to get over to win a medal, right? So all of a sudden having the media really creating this intensity and focus about this rivalry and about this, young kid who was here to overtake the old dog and all the stuff that they like to put out there, it became an interesting sideshow and distraction. And there were moments when it was hard not to get sucked into it a little bit. Being my third Olympics and I guess being a little bit older and wiser and knowing that it was a special thing that I was a part of, Sydney was actually the first time as I walked out behind the blocks for the race that I actually listened and looked at the crowd purposefully. You can never avoid it because the noise is always overwhelming and there's all that colour and action and things going on, so you're conscious of it. But Sydney was the first time I actually stopped and looked. And walking out behind the blocks for my race, hearing my name called and not only looking up and seeing that crowd, but just getting that incredible energy blasting off them. It sends shivers up your spine thinking about it, and I'll certainly never forget it because it was one of the ingredients that made Sydney one of the all-time best Olympics that's ever happened. And certainly as an individual, my favourite Olympic experience. Touching the wall after that race was really just one of those overwhelming emotive moments. You know, you've got this incredible relief that it's over, sense of disappointment to an extent that you didn't quite achieve what you wanted to, joy at wanting to celebrate a moment with one of your teammates who's done something extraordinary, you know, a sense of being a little bit disconcerted because, oh, my career's done now, I'm retiring. What does that mean? You know, like it was all just rolled into one. It was just this really overwhelming kind of sense of finality. But I think for me, you know, I do actually clearly remember embracing Grant after the race and saying to him, "Congratulations, mate, you really deserve this." You know, I really felt that the best guy won on the day. I did everything I could. There was nothing left out there. There was no thing that I wished I did that I didn't that was going to change the outcome. And I think being able to sort of reflect that to him in that moment, that, you know, I really did congratulate him and that he did deserve it, was kind of the, you know, maybe for me even the symbolic passing of the baton, right? Like that was my recognition point that you know, my transitionary custodianship of the 1500 metres freestyle for Australia was done, and there was a new Queenslander, thankfully, to take it on for us.
Having this dream situation of being at an Olympics, my very first one, in front of my home country, winning an Olympic gold medal, but one of the great moments for me, and I'll never forget, I'll take this one to the grave, and it's a very, very proud and unexpected moment somewhat, was when Kieren Perkins actually leant over the lane rope and said to me, he said, "You deserve this." And I was almost a little bit taken back because we did have quite a fierce rivalry in many ways, but when he said that and the genuineness that came across in that moment, it just made everything so much better to see a guy I looked up to, admired so much, had turned from hero to rival. And then to be in that moment, in that situation, and for him to share those words was, it still inspires me to this very day. And I'm still very, very grateful of his response in that moment, where he could have been the first person to win 3 in a row. And I was the guy that spoiled that, but he was just so gracious and so genuine in that moment. It was really, really nice, and it just made it all the more better, and I certainly thank Kieren for that.